Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing my Week 8 lineup review, talking about my Week 8 lineups, recapping the Week 8 slate, talking about the plays that did really well for me, and then going over some of the guys that may be disappointed. As you can see in like these top 3 lineups, just showing these 3, was a rough week. I just missed on a lot of plays. Martavis Bryant I had some exposure to. He got a 0. We knew that Martavis Bryant was going to be the number 2 receiver, or supposedly was going to be the number 2 receiver behind Jordy when the Amari Cooper trade happened. And Bryant was like 3,700, I believe, so I thought he was a really good value play. He got 0. T.Y. Hilton I got on pretty late in the week. He only got 4 DraftKings points. Most of my tight end exposure was to Njoku and Uzoma. I believe I had those 2 tight ends in about 60-70% of my lineups, and they both combined for 0 fantasy points. So when you have 2 guys combined for 0 fantasy points and you have them in 70% of your lineups, it's most likely going to be a disappointing week. And it was definitely a disappointing week. I did hit on some good plays, though. Had James Conner in about 50 or 60%. He went for 41. I was way over the field on Christian McCaffrey. I know he was like really low owned, like just like 4 or 5% owned. And I think I went about 30-35% McCaffrey. Just really liked him this week at 7K. Thought he was a good value. Kind of lucked out with that second touchdown he caught. But McCaffrey 21, that was another good play. Mahomes was my highest exposed quarterback, so that worked out well. Joe Mixon I didn't have a ton of. Had more Connor than I did Mixon. But then some more busts, like I had a lot of Crowell. He only got 4.8 DK points. Thought Crowell was a really good value at 3,700 when we knew that Khalil Mack was going to be out for the Bears. We knew Bilal Powell was done for the season, so I felt like Crowell was just going to be looking at a really heavy workload. And that wasn't the case. I believe the rookie, or I don't even know if he's a rookie, but the backup they have for the Jets, forgot what his name is, but he outsnapped Crowell. Crowell didn't even play the most snaps out of the 2 running backs. So just a really disappointing week. Just missed on a lot of plays. We'll recap the slate, talk about my guys real quickly. We'll go over my Yahoo lineups. I did play on Yahoo this week. Did not play on FanDuel. Didn't have enough time to build out enough lineups where I'd want to play on FanDuel. So just played DraftKings and Yahoo this week. Once we recap these lineups, we'll go over the showdown slate for Monday Night Football between the Bills and the Patriots, talk about that game, the plays we want to go to. Let's go ahead and talk about my lineups, recap the slate. So I mentioned like the guys that disappointed early on, like Njoku, Uzoma were kind of my bigger bust. My hits for the week were definitely James Conner, Patrick Mahomes, McCaffrey, a little Joe Mixon, but I did not have much Joe Mixon. It was definitely a lot more bust this week for me than it was hits. Even guys like A.J. Green didn't even do that great, just 18 DK points against a terrible Buccaneers defense. Odell was really good, 24 DK points. Tyler Boyd I had in some lineups, he got 31. But we'll just, like these lineups with 4 entries, these are my 20 max lineups. And then I did play 150 in the mini max, and those are down here. We'll talk about the 20 max lineups. The mini max, my 150 and the mini max were kind of the same guys, kind of the same core, I should say. But like some of these lineups, it's really tilting. Looking at these, like this lineup put up with 148 with 2 guys getting a 0. Had Martavis and Uzoma in this lineup, and it still put up 148. Really annoying. Had a 158 here with Martavis getting a 0, 151 Uzoma getting a 0. Just really, really annoying. Those guys I thought were really good values. Did not turn out that way. Njoku was definitely the biggest, like, just shocker. I did not expect him to get. He didn't even get a target. Njoku's been getting like 12, 10 targets like the past few games. I'm going to pull up his game log real quickly just so I can confirm that. But Njoku's been getting like receiver targets, like 10 targets. Like against Baltimore week 5, 10 targets. Chargers week 6, 12 targets. Tampa Bay, 6 targets. And then just nothing. Just 0 targets, 0 catches. Doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Njoku, big bust for me this week. One of my highest exposed players in general. Obviously my highest exposed tight end, and overall one of my highest exposed players, and 0 fantasy points. So rough week on DraftKings, definitely. I lost pretty heavily. I think I lost about 50%, so I got crushed this week. Just didn't hit on a lot of good plays. When that's the case, you're going to lose. So we'll move on to next week. Hopefully look to bounce back next week, have a better performance. Maybe things will roll my way next week. But that's really it for DraftKings. Quarterback, highest exposed quarterback was Mahomes. At running back, mostly it was Mixon, or not Mixon, it was mostly Connor, McCaffrey, Crowell, and then Mixon, I'd say. I did have, forgot who was the other running back I had a lot of exposure to, but mostly Connor and McCaffrey was kind of where I went at running back. Wide receiver, I had a lot of cheap plays here. I wanted to spin up at running back. I wanted to get a lot of Todd Gurley. That was the running back I was forgetting about. I think I had Gurley in about 55-60%, so I was way over the field. He was actually only like 25-30% owned this week. Gurley just continues to crush 36 DK points this week. He was one of my highest exposed running backs. But in order to do that, to get Gurley in so many lineups, I had to go cheap. So wide receiver, I kind of went with guys like Anthony Miller, who I thought was going to get some targets, and he did with Allen Robinson out. Anthony Miller at 3,400, I liked as a value play. Martavis with his 0 at 3,700. I think Jermaine Kearse was pretty cheap. I was on Jermaine Kearse a little bit. Michael Crabtree only got 60 DK points, but I did like him as a value. Demaryius Thomas was really cheap against the Chiefs. He only got 6 DK points, though. Disappointing game from him. But as you can see, like the cheap guys, Miller did have some Courtland Sutton, not a ton. Courtland Sutton was another value play that kind of got on at receiver. But yeah, I think that's it for my DK lineups. As you can see, it was just a rough week. Just missed on a lot of the plays, or just a lot of plays I was heavy on, just didn't do well. So let's move on to Yahoo. Yahoo's kind of the similar thing. Played sort of the same guys I played on DK. On Yahoo, I just had a lot of the pairing at running back of Connor and McCaffrey, which did work out pretty well, but had a lot of David Njoku, as you can see, with his 0. A lot of Jarvis Landry on Yahoo. He was really, really cheap. Really liked him there. But that's one of my lineups that actually did cash. I think I cashed like 3 or 4 out of 10. So it wasn't too bad of a week. I did lose on Yahoo, but didn't lose that much. I think I lost like $20, whatever. But it was kind of the same core. Had some Crowell on Yahoo. Had some Kerryon Johnson, Taylor Gabriel, Landry again. This lineup I went with the Ben Juju stack, which didn't really work out well. Kyle Rudolph I had in that Sunday night game. Didn't do great. Todd Gurley, San Francisco D. Jameis to Mike Evans went back with Tyler Boyd. Then Connor McCaffrey had Crowell in this lineup. Landry, Rudolph, 49ers D. This one was the Aaron Rodgers stack. Aaron Rodgers and Geronimo Allison. That stack did not work out well. Then Cohen, McCaffrey, Gabriel, Jarvis Landry, Njoku again, and Gurley. Had Gurley at about 50% of my Yahoo lineup, so that was one of the positives. Had a lot of Gurley over here. But still, you can see a lot of Njoku. He was one of the cheaper tight ends that I liked on Yahoo, and 19% owned, 0 fantasy points, really annoying. Geronimo Allison had 20% of my lineups, 11% owned, just 1.9 fantasy points, only got 1 catch. It was just one of those strange weeks where the guys I expected to do well did not do well. Really, the only guys I hit on were like Connor, McCaffrey, and that really was about it. Like a receiver, I didn't really hit on a ton of good receivers. I guess Anthony Miller was a cheap receiver I hit on, but like Martavis didn't do well. Demaryius Thomas didn't do well. Courtland Sutton was okay, but not great. Jermaine Kearse did not do well, so just a really rough week. This lineup, Kirk Cousins to Adam Thielen in that late night game. Then I had Crowell, Gurley, Kearse, Landry, Snead, Njoku, 49ers D. This was actually a decent lineup. Mayfield to Jarvis Landry and Njoku with his 0, Kearse with 4, Crowell with 4, but then I had Connor with 35, Odell with 17, Gurley with 30. In my last 2 lineups, this one was a Luck to T.Y. stack. Then ran it back with Martavis on the other side, Connor McCaffrey, Galladay, Landry, Njoku, Panthers D. And then my last lineup on Yahoo was a Dalton to AJ Green stack with Crowell, Johnson, Mike Evans on the other side of that game. Had Landry, Jordan Reed, Taylor Gabriel, and the Chiefs D. So that's it for my Yahoo lineups. Now let's go over this showdown slate for Monday Night Football between the Patriots and the Bills. Pretty interesting game. Do have some key injuries in this game, especially on the Patriots side. So we know that Sony Michel is going to be out for this game. So James White, one of the most expensive players on this showdown slate, is going to be a really strong play here. We'll talk about him in a second. Obviously, Brady is the most expensive player overall. Derrick Anderson, a cheap quarterback we might can use. He's going to be starting for the Bills in this game, and he's only $7K. I believe that's one of the cheapest prices we've seen on a starting quarterback for these showdown slates. So even though Derrick Anderson is not good, he's probably going to have to throw the ball a lot because the Bills are most likely going to be playing from behind this game. Derrick Anderson could easily get 15 fantasy points and 7K. Could definitely be a sort of a value play, I guess you could say. Also got Lesean Mccoy at 6,600, who's been really disappointing this year, but is getting pretty heavy workload, getting about 20 touches a game in competitive games. I'm worried that this game doesn't stay competitive. I think this could be a blowout, but if this game stays competitive, we could be looking at a nice game from Lesean Mccoy at 6,600. He's listed as questionable right now, but he is expected to play. And then as we look down to the value, we got Kenyon Barner, who's probably going to be getting some carries now that Sony Michel is out, but I still expect James White to be the guy that the Patriots really lean on at running back. Don't think I'm going to be on Barner much, especially at 5,600. Kelvin Benjamin, 3,800 is actually, I think, one of the better value plays on this showdown slate. With Derrick Anderson in at quarterback, I expect him to target Benjamin because sort of that connection they had when they both played for the Panthers. Benjamin did get 5 targets last week, 4 catches, 71 yards, 11 DraftKings points. Not expecting 20-25 DK points from Benjamin, but at 3,800, he could definitely get you 12-13 DK points and be a good value. Could definitely be a better value than going to the kickers. Do like Benjamin at 3,800. So it's an interesting showdown slate. We've got some value. But we'll start up top with Tom Brady. He's 12,100. You can obviously play Brady on this showdown slate. I'm worried about how high of a ceiling he has here because I don't know if the Patriots are really going to have to continue to gun it out all game. I feel like they can get a lead pretty early and just kind of kill the clock late in the game. So James White at 11,800 I like, and I think I'd actually play him over Brady because I feel like James White has a really high ceiling in this game. He's going to get plenty of carries now that Michel is out, and we know the pass game involvement is going to be there. He got 10 targets last week, 7 targets, 14 targets, 10 targets. Those are just his targets for the last 4 games. He's getting receiver-like targets. He's getting some carries as well. I expect they give I expect they give Barner about 10 carries, but James White probably going to be the guy that's on the field just more than Kenyon Barner, and we know the pass game involvement makes him very attractive on DraftKings with it being full PPR scoring. James White could easily outscore Tom Brady here. He's a little bit cheaper, so I do like him. I think using him as a captain makes some sense. There are some cheaper plays we could consider at captain to allow us to fit in the studs. But James White and captain definitely is a guy that I'm probably going to be on. Julian Edelman at 9,600 I do like. I expect Josh Gordon's probably going to miss this game. He's been questionable. I don't think he's going to play. That should open up some opportunity for Julian Edelman. At 9,600, you could go there. Gronk is questionable, but he is expected to play. Gronk is 8,400. Definitely like Gronk as well, even though he's been really disappointing this year. On a showdown slate, 1-game slate, I think Gronk is definitely in play. And then I mentioned Derrick Anderson. I think Derrick Anderson's actually a guy we can't consider here. He's 7K. He's really, really cheap. He's just a cheap quarterback that we know is going to be on the field and is going to be throwing the ball. But he threw the ball 31 times against the Colts, only 20 completions, only threw for 175 yards, did throw 3 interceptions. So really disappointing game from Derrick Anderson, just 3 DraftKings points last week against the Colts. But the reason I really like him is not because he's good or anything, but because of that 7K price tag. That just is a really cheap price tag for a starting quarterback, especially in a showdown slate. Playing from behind against the Patriots, I expect Anderson's going to have to throw probably 35 to 40 times. Could easily get 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is 14 DraftKings points or whatever. Or that's actually 16 DraftKings points. So if Derrick Anderson gets 16 DK points at 7K, could definitely be one of the stronger mid-tier plays. I think I'd actually play him over Lesean Mccoy. But Lesean Mccoy at 6,600 is for sure an option if you want to go to him. In competitive games this year, Lesean McCoy is looking at a nice, pretty heavy workload. 13-20 game against Houston. He got 16 carries, got 3 receptions as well, 5 targets. Close game against the Titans, 24 carries, got 3 targets, 2 catches, so 26 touches that game. Obviously, this game has blowout potential. There's a chance this game is not close, but like I said earlier, if it stays close, Lesean McCoy at 6,600 could be looking at 20 touches again. It definitely does make sense as a cheaper play if you want to look to him at running back or as one of your flex options. Could it potentially be a captain depending on what his price is at captain? But now let's look to the value plays. So I think the Patriots D is obviously for sure in play. They're 4,800 though, which is pretty expensive for a defense. But I'll take a defense facing the Bills any day of the week, especially on a showdown slate. Patriots are probably going to score double-digit points here. At 4,800, definitely a value option I do like. If Josh Gordon is confirmed out, then Chris Hogan should be looking at some more opportunity, and he is 4,600. Could definitely be a value play. But I really like Kelvin Benjamin as just a cheap option, 3,800. I'm projecting him to get about 6 targets, 5 to 6 targets. Could potentially be even looking at more than that. I mean, he's been getting about that amount every game last few weeks. 6 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. So he's been getting the targets. Obviously, hasn't been very efficient with the targets, or the targets haven't been good. Just 4, 2, 6, and 11 DraftKings points last 4 games. But I think he does have a little bit of a connection with Derrick Anderson. I think Anderson's going to be looking his way. So Kelvin Benjamin at 3,800. Do like him as a value play. If you play like Kelvin Benjamin as your captain, especially if you do that in a tournament, that's going to allow you to fit in a lot of studs. Probably could play Brady, White, maybe even Edelman if you went with Benjamin in your captain spot. So I do like doing that. Benjamin's definitely a value play I like. You obviously have the kickers who are values, 34, 2,800. Then getting down to the really cheap plays, like Charles Clay at 2,400. Probably going to be a guy that's getting about 4 to 5 targets, so definitely in play at 2,400 if you want to go to him. He hasn't really been that good this year, hasn't been a great fantasy option, but on a single game showdown slate, if he's going to be on the field, I'm probably going to consider him. So Charles Clay, 2,400. Even Zay Jones, 2,600. How have his targets been lately? He's been seeing still some steady targets. 5 targets last week, 8, 4, 7. So Zay Jones, Charles Clay, both value plays that could potentially be in play. The Bills' defense is really cheap, but I don't think I'm going to play a defense against Brady, even though they're really, really cheap. So that's probably it for the value plays. I think my favorite cheap play is probably Charles Clay, Zay Jones, Kelvin Benjamin. Like Philip Dorsett, just don't think I'm going to be on. Just these guys down here just don't get enough playing time to where I really want to consider them. So that's really it for talking about the plays. Now let's sort of quickly go over roster construction. So I mentioned playing Kelvin Benjamin in your captain spot. Let's just see what that allows us to do. So Benjamin is 5,700. If you do that, you could definitely play Brady, James White. You could probably go down to Lesean Mccoy or Derrick Anderson. Let's see if we went Anderson, McCoy. That would leave us 6,700. You don't want to play Chris Ivory with McCoy, so let's see if we can go cheaper. We got James White, Brady, Benjamin, Anderson. So if we maybe got another pass catcher from the Bills, maybe Charles Clay at 2,400, that would allow us to fit in Edelman if we wanted to do that. And then we'd still have $1,300 left, so we could upgrade Charles Clay. And maybe if you feel like a kicker outscores Clay, you could play Gostkowski at 3,400. So I do sort of like that as a tournament lineup, a sort of way you could build a tournament lineup. Always like to go cheap at captain just because of what it allows you to do with your other flex spots. Like if you play White in your captain, which makes sense, you're really thinned out though on salary. You're going to have to go cheap. You could go Derrick Anderson, go Lesean McCoy, go for a cheap play like Kelvin Benjamin at 3,800. Then you could probably fit in a pass catcher, another pass catcher. I don't think you could play Brady if you did that. That'd leave you 2,700. So you could actually do that. You could play Charles Clay or Zay Jones. So that could be another way you could go. James White at captain. Then go down for cheaper plays from the Bills. Anderson, McCoy, Benjamin. But then you still get Brady, you still get Charles Clay. If that lineup's going to be a good lineup, obviously the game's probably going to have to be close and competitive. Because you're banking on McCoy being on the field. You're banking on Anderson having to throw. So it's probably going to have to be a close game if that lineup works out. But you never know with NFL. It could be a close game here, or at least close enough to where the starters are going to be on the field the whole game. So on this showdown slate, I think you can play White in your captain. You could also go cheap, though. I think I lean going cheap. I usually always like to go cheap at captain if there's value plays I think have some upside. Like Benjamin could easily get 13, 14 DK points. With the captain bonus, I think that puts him at like 20 maybe, or like 19. So getting 20 out of your captain. And then if you say Benjamin gets 13, 14 points, obviously you do the 1.5x. That gives you about 20 in your captain spot. Then Brady goes for 25. James White goes for about the same. That's already like 60, 70 points right there. You hit on the right value plays. Like if you go to Derrick Anderson and he throws 2 touchdowns, that's 15 points right there. If you go to Lesean McCoy and he maybe catches one of those touchdowns, or if he has a rushing touchdown, he probably can get you about 10, 15 points. So doing that, I think makes sense. and then you have 6,700. I talked about maybe going down or downgrading from McCoy, so you could get up to Edelman or Gronk, or you could just leave some salary on the table and maybe play like Chris Hogan and leave $2,100 on the table and have sort of a contrarian lineup. I think that does make sense in a tournament. But that's sort of my analysis on the Showdown slate. I haven't been as fully involved in these since NBA has started. I'm still playing them, still making a couple lineups, but definitely not going as heavy as I was to begin the year. But I still do like playing these, just gives you something to sweat while you watch the game. But yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this Showdown video, and hopefully this video did help you. Hopefully you enjoyed my Week 8 lineup review. Let me know down in the comments how some guys did for you, who you were heavy on, maybe who did well and who disappointed for you. Always like to hear and see your comments. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and good luck tonight on the Showdown slate.